Good day. Welcome to the last week of this course. In the first week, we look into the introduction about the spirituality of Saint Augustine and the spirituality of the order. Second week, we look into interiority. Third week, community life. Fourth week, Augustine on love. And today, we will be looking into Augustinian spirituality in initial formation. Regarding the flow of the talk, first, a review of the elements of Augustinian spirituality, namely, interiority, community life, and service to the church. Then we will be looking formation spirituality, the integration of Augustinian spirituality to the formative process, and lastly, challenges. First, a review. Now, we knew very well, Tarsicius Van Babel tried to define spirituality as window on the gospel. Looking on Augustine, he has this word journey. He tried to begin to love reading the scriptures while listening to Ambrose, because Ambrose is very good in breaking the word. And of course, in the Garden of Milan, he has this encounter with the word in Romans chapter 13 to 14. And he has a lot of commentaries in terms of the writing, study of scriptures. So the word journey. Now, the principal document of our spirituality is the order according to Constitution number 16. When we speak of Augustinian spirituality, our very own Luis Marin tried to define this: the spirituality proper to the order of Saint Augustine that joins the teaching and example of the Bishop of Hippo with the spiritual features of the mendicant movement, and all of this as lived and manifested by the order throughout its history in all its different circumstances of time, place, and culture. Luis Marin tried to identify twofold sources of Augustinian spirituality, namely from Augustine himself, that is Augustine teaching and example, and second, the features of the mendicant tradition. We will try to look that. You can see here, Augustine, interiority, community life, and service of the church. We have been looking this for the whole duration of this course. Interiority, community life, and service of the church. Now, in the mendicant tradition, more or less this is search for God, fraternal life, and following the poor Christ. In our Christian language, this first column, interiority, metanoia or conversion. This is koinonia or communion, and this is diakonia, commitment. Or in terms of the values, these are veritas, unitas, caritas, or truth, unity, and love. The three elements of Augustinian spirituality. We will try to look this closely. Well, the famous line of Augustine in Confessions 1:1:1, "You have made us and drawn us to yourself, and our heart is unquiet until it rests in you." According to Robert Rochelle, OSA, the never-ending search for God offers a living and integrated account of Augustinian spirituality. Again, the never-ending search for God, it offers a living and integrated account of Augustinian spirituality. Second, Augustinian spirituality embraces the gospel values of community. Loving our neighbor is a concrete expression of loving God, and development of good relationships. That is according to Tarsicius Van Babel. So, community is very important now for us. And we Augustinians are champion in relating skills. And thirdly, from the constitutions of the order, number 35, the love of the church the love for the church, bring us to total availability for its needs by accepting the tasks which the church asks for us. This availability for the service to the church constitutes one of the essential characteristics of Augustinian spirituality. I hope, my dear formators and vocation promoters, by this time it's now very clear to you the three elements of Augustinian spirituality: interiority, community life, and service to the church. Miguel Angel Orcasetas, OSA, mentioned, there are three elements that serve to structure Augustinian spirituality: the search for God, community, and service to the church. And Orcasetas mentioned, these three have community as the core because it is the scene or stage of the search for God and the structure within which the church is served. With this, it's very clear that the community is central because it is where we will be searching for God. That is why for us, Augustinian, it is shared search. Shared search. And likewise, the famous line among us Augustinian, the community is our first apostolate, the structure within which the church is served. What is the difference between communion and community? Communion is a value. Community is a structure so that that value will be realized. So that's the communion and community. Second, we will now go on the Augustinian formative spirituality. And of course, we will be looking here now on the plan of Augustinian formation, which you as formators are very familiar of. Now, we have been talking about the three elements of Augustinian spirituality: interiority, communion of life, and service to the church. In the Ratio Institutiones, we have this sharing the search for God in community, sharing life in community, and sharing academic study and the apostolic in community. So very clear from the Ratio Institutiones in relation to the three elements of Augustinian spirituality. The picture is taken in one of the monastery here in the Philippines and with our friars from Korea. We will try to look these three fundamental elements for Augustinian formation. First, sharing the search for God in community. This is veritas, or search for God. So we can see here, formation, a life of faith, formation to encounter God, formation to prayer, formation to interiority. I'm just highlighting some outline based from what is reflected in the Ratio Institutiones or the RI. Second is sharing life in community. So from the Ratio Institutiones, it speaks of formation, relationship with God, self, and others. Formation to a life of love, humility, friendship, dialogue, and harmony. Third, formation to community life in the light of the three vows. Third, in the Ratio Institutiones, is sharing academic study and the apostolate in community. So apostolate as service for the salvation of others, apostolate and community, preparation for the apostolate, and variety of apostolate and activities. So my dear formators and vocation promoters, I will not look that extensively because I know there is a course that will look into the Ratio Institutiones. Now, in terms of the formation, what are the common marks of formation vis-a-vis what is reflected in the Ratio Institutiones? So you have here man in relationship, religious being, social being, and being in the world. in relation to the ratio institutiones, human beings, Christian, Augustinian, apostolic ministers. Now, for us here in Cebu province, we will try to evaluate the formants in the four aspects in terms of human aspect, Christian aspect, Augustinian aspect, and apostolic dimension. So, the common marks of formation. When we speak of formation, there is such thing as internal formative environment. And we need to look at the programs and the processes of doing formation. Maybe for the postulants, a question, who am I? Who am I? For the novice, with whom do I spend my life? So, and at the end of the novitiate, they will say yes to the engagement. That is why, for the simple professors, what is God want of me? These are things in terms of the internal formative environment. In terms of the external formative environment, well, in the pre-novitiate, the praise from the scriptures of John chapter 1 verse 39, come and see. And in the novitiate program, that they stayed close to Him. The post-novitiate, they followed Him at once. External formative environment. Now, a question. We have been looking into spirituality, the elements of Augustinian spirituality. We will try to integrate that in the formative process so that in the end, we can have a person of the candidates or the profile of our candidates. Remember, in the Constitution number 190, it speaks a special program of formation for individual circumscriptions, which is based on the plan of formation of the RI, Ratio Institutiones, is to provide that all these things are put into practice. What are these things? These elements of Augustinian spirituality. What has been mentioned in the RI, all these things must be put into place in the formative process, in the program of formation. And speaking of the program of formation, what is important is there is what we call spiral approach to formation so that we can work on the theme of maturity. Later, I will be giving some example of this. Likewise, a partner with the spiral approach is the scope and sequence in terms of the stages of formation. What I'm trying to say with this spiral approach and stages of formation, example, how is interiority being taught in the pre-novice? To what extent? Then later in the novitiate, in the post-novitiate. Likewise, in terms of spiral approach, yes, maybe prayer on this level only, but bigger spiral approach. Again, as I mentioned, we will be giving some example. First, but we have to remember RI 84 mentioned, formation is to take place in a gradual and systematic way. This is just an example. Maybe in the pre-novitiate, we will be looking into Christian prayer life. In the novitiate, Augustine and prayer based from the rule. In the post-novitiate, well, maybe this is the time that we'll be looking into Augustine and the Psalms. Augustine about the Lord's Prayer. You can see there a gradual and systematic way, as well as the scope and sequence. Another example in terms of service, but this time in terms of the evaluation of our candidates. Maybe for the pre-novitiate, we will evaluate the candidates in terms of their attitude of generosity. For the novitiate, we will evaluate the novices to be elevated to their first level of first profession of vows, appreciate for the life of apostolate in the community. And post-novitiate, their sense of commitment. Even in the post-novitiate, there must be also a gradual and systematic way from the first professed year, second professed, third year, and so on, until they approach the stage of their solemn profession. So gradual and systematic way. RI 25 and 26 speaks of the community is formative. The years of initial formation should be spent in the communities. Speaking of the candidate, formator, formation community, these are agents of formation. So that is why here in the Asia Pacific, we have joint formation. Because we believe that those circumscription having only one or two novices, they need to be integrated or joined with other novitiate program. Because we believe the community is formative and the years of initial formation should be spent in communities. Challenges. First challenge is transmit with fidelity the charism spirituality of the order. And I think this is a challenge for us formators, how we will transmit the spirituality of order to our formans. Members of formation community should strive to deepen the bonds of unity among members. So again, very important how we will try to transmit with fidelity. I know the young or formans this time are of different age with us. Their environment is different. But again, the challenge is transmit with fidelity the charism and the spirituality of the order. Second, be bridges between two realities. God who calls and the one who responds. As formator, we will be a man of prayer. Because we will be bridging between God and our formans. In RI number 69, Oratio Institutiones number 69, an Augustinian formation program should include discussion and practices in modeling and developing a fidelity in personal and communal periods of prayer. So my dear formator, very important, the practice of prayer. Because our coming to the oratory, our presence, silent presence in the oratory, that's already teaching them what prayer is. Be a man of prayer. 3, emphasize vocational accompaniment. The chief instrument of formation is personal dialogue, a practice of irreplaceable and commendable effectiveness which should take place regularly and with a certain frequency. I cannot imagine formation without dialogue between the formator and our formans. So personal dialogue, because this is accompaniment with our formans. So mentioned here, there must be dialogue, no? Regularly and with certain frequency. I do not know in the novitiate how often you engage into dialogue in the semper profess years. But as mentioned here, personal dialogue is the chief instrument of formation. Emphasize vocational accompaniment. 4th, be experts in the ministry of washing the feet. One of our formator here in Cebu province, the master of the novices, Father Joel Beronki, OSA, mentioned, the life of the formator is the best formation program. I will repeat the words of our novice master. The life of the formator is the best formation program. Witnessing. 5th, be profoundly human and evangelical demanding. Be challenging. This is the words of Archbishop Jose Rodriguez Carvalho, OFM. In his words when we had our formation as formators, when I attended the formation of formators in Cassia. So very important, no? be profoundly human and evangelical demanding. Challenge also our formance. If you pass the person to the next level of formation, even though you have some questions, that is not charity. In the language of Sister Brendan. Again, our speaker in the formation encounter in Kasha. If you pass the person to the next level of formation, even though you have some questions, that is not charity. So those are challenges in terms of formation. Questions for reflections. First, considering the culture of the youth and one's country, what elements of Augustinian spirituality you consider seems a challenge in the works of formation? Second, formation is to take place in a gradual and systematic way. What are your thoughts on the spiral approach to formation program and to consider scope and sequence in the different stages of formation? Third, what can you consider a great challenge of formation related to the integration of spirituality for the candidates, formation personnel, and formation community? Maybe I invite you, formators, who, if you are living with other formation community, try to discuss this question among yourselves. Now, I know there are some formators that are attending this course and they are staying in one community. Why not engage into conversation related to this question? With that, that's the end of this session. Thank you and God bless.